Hello, namaste, welcome, Hare Krishna. This is number 9 in our series of talks on the essentials of Bhakti, as we call it, the Vaishnava Catechism, everything you ever needed to know. And today we're going to be studying the internal energy of Parabrahman, as we have come to know him. We talked about Brahman, we talked about Parabrahma, we talked about Paratattva, we talked about the Absolute, we talked about the ultimate reality. We haven't quite got to Krishna yet. We're examining all these different ways of looking at the Absolute and seeing our relationship to that Absolute. Last time, we talked about the fact that the Supreme Reality, that reality which is not conditioned or qualified by any other material attribute or quality, that which is not conditioned by time or space, that reality is like the sun, has energies of heat and light. That reality also has energies. These are its attributes. Last time we talked about the spider in the web, Tantu Nabi, that which weaves with its belly, the spider, weaves the web, and if it wishes, it can eat it all back in again. This is the Absolute. Janmadyasya yataha, creates everything and then sucks it all back in again at the end of creation. Creator, maintainer, and destroyer. We also talked about the cow and the milk, and we talked about the cow having the milk as its external energy, the Bina Prakriti, external energy. So we're going to look at that a little bit more, not the cow, but the idea of the Absolute having energies which are simultaneously one and different from that Supreme. So, as we talked about last time, Parabrahman or Paratattva or God, source of all energies, and we talked about these energies being 3 in number. We sort of clarified them in easy terms. There's many different terms that crop up in sacred texts, but for easiness, we'll speak in English. There was the internal energy, which is the Supreme itself, himself, herself. We haven't quite got to that yet. And then there was the external energy, and then there was the middle energy in between the two, which was the marginal energy. Internal, external, marginal. Marginal is the soul. But tonight we want to talk about the internal energy. We're focusing in on that which is intrinsic to the reality of the Absolute Truth. So, just as there are 3 energies, internal, external, and marginal, within the internal, there are also 3 energies. 3 components, we should say, not energies, but components. 3 qualities, 3 attributes. And these are classically known as, bliss, existence, and cognition. Bliss is the potency by which God, if you like, is the supreme enjoyer. Sometimes it can be theoretically conceived that God somehow is either dull, boring, or he has negative qualities like God would be very angry, or God sends thunderbolts, or God is the destroyer, or God is the judge. But we never have a description of God as Adi Purusha, or the supreme enjoyer, the original enjoyer. Actually, God experiences bliss at all times. There's no unhappiness for God. We cannot project our difficulties and sufferings on God as if, in order to make God more of a person, he has to be more like me. Therefore, sometimes I'm happy and sometimes I'm sad. Therefore, it must be like that with God as well. The Paramattva, the Supreme Reality, must sometimes be in ecstasy and sometimes must be very sad. how else can he be human like me? Or how else can he be a person? So we mustn't project. Rather, rather, it's God's business to project qualities on us, isn't it? We are the subject, not the object. So bliss means that he has the position of being the supreme enjoyer, always enjoying. Next one is, I didn't do it in the order here, existence. Well, it sort of goes without saying that the absolute truth is always existing in three phases of time: past, present, and future. Time itself acts within material space, and therefore for one who is transcendent, as the Supreme Paramatapa is, there is no past, present, and future. There's only eternity. There's only now. When we meditate or when we try to take up spiritual life, we're trying to become free from the sufferings of past, present, and future by entering into a cosmic space which is the eternal now, which is the realm of the soul. When we become elevated by our own meditation, we can access that space which is beyond space and time, the God space. But God is in that space all the time. The last quality is known as cognition, meaning that the Supreme cognizes or recognizes or never forgets, is always cognizant of everything. Whether it's a sparrow pecking at an ant, or a leaf falling from a tree, or a cat meowing, or a blackbird singing in a tree, or a ship going across a stormy sea, or a football match, or the heart of the supporter at the football match, or a young mum just about to deliver a baby. Whoever and whatever it is in the material world, the Supreme is cognizant at all times of every single activity from the cosmic to the molecular. Now you may say, how is that possible? I can't do that. Well, no, you're not God. That's why you can't do it. When I was young, I used to ask my mother. So in the chapel, this Methodist chapel where I grew up, there was about 30, 40 people would come every Sunday, and they were all praying to God at the same time at one point. And I said to my mother, how is it that God can hear 40 prayers from 40 different people all at the same time? She said, I don't know, but he can. And 40 is not very much at all. Of course, it's just a microscopic number. How about 40,000 people praying at the same time? How about 40,000 people who are praying and 40,000 people who are not praying? How about 40 million people that are not praying? Whether they're praying or not, the Supreme is cognizant of each and every single human, each and every cat, dog, sparrow, blade of grass, everything. So this is cognizance. Srila Prabhupada comments on a famous verse from the Vishnu Purana. Prabhupada likes the Vishnu Purana. Well, Jiva Goswami likes the Vishnu Purana because the Vishnu Purana is a great favorite of the Sri Vaishnavas, but it has a lot of substantial foundational verses about God, the world, and souls, as we've been discussing. That verse is as follows. It's, the Supreme Person has three kinds of internal potency. We've just been talking about that. Namely, the Hladini Shakti, or pleasure potency. The Sandini Shakti, or existential potency. And the Samvit Shakti, or cognitive potency. In the Vishnu Purana 112:69, the Lord is addressed as follows. O Lord, you are the support of everything. The three attributes, Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit, exist in you as one spiritual energy. But the material modes, which cause happiness, misery, and mixtures of the two, do not exist in you, for you have no material qualities. So Srila Jiva Goswami, who lived in the late 1500s, he takes that text and he writes a commentary. So he says, and it's just a repetition of what we've already, you should be taking notes with your pen and paper. The transcendental potency by which God maintains his existence is called Sandini. So existence, existential potency by which time transcends time, past, present, future, lives in eternity. This is Sandini, Sandini, Sandini. We must try to remember. The transcendental potency by which he knows himself, he knows everything, and causes others to know him, is called Samvit. The potency by which he possesses transcendental bliss, you can remember Samvit by taking the last. Well, Sam means everything, like Sam Kirtan, or Samyak means everything, and Vit means to know. Vit, like video. We get the Greek word video, I see. So I understand, I know. And the German word wit, and the English word wit. Making a person who's wise, he's full of wit. So you can remember Samvit is by how he knows everything and causes others to know him, Samvit. And then the potency by which he possesses transcendental bliss and causes his devotees to share in that bliss. That's me and you. If we're happy when we recite the names of the Supreme, we are being caused by the Supreme to enjoy that. He's sharing with us his Hladini Shakti. So Prabhupada gives a very nice example, and I know last week I got some favorable comments about natural examples because it helped you all to remember. So when we see a tree, we understand the tree, the concept of tree, to include roots, trunk, limbs, branches, twigs, leaves, and conkers, or whatever else it may be, oranges or apples. There is variety in the unity. So we say there's a unified thing called a tree, but there's variety in that tree. There's a lot of different things. There's roots, which is a tree, trunk, which is a tree, branches, which is a tree, twigs, which is a tree, leaves, which is a tree, flowers, which is a tree, apples, which is a tree. It's all tree. Now, a trunk is not the whole of a tree, it's a part of the tree. So there's various elements, but it's all together called a tree. At the same time, there's unity in the variety in the unity, and unity in the variety. Varieties of energy are required for performing all the different activities of the tree. A tree has to do so much. Those of you who like trees will be pleased to recount your knowledge of the tree by saying that a tree, what does it do? Communicate with its roots to other trees through the roots, and it lifts up water through the trunk, and the trunk gives water to the rest of the limbs and the twigs, and then the leaves, they do the photosynthesis and send the energy back down throughout the tree, and in this way they create sugar, and the tree is nourished and produces flowers and produces fruits. There's a lot of things going on. It's a complete living system. So you can say all these varieties of energy, they all make up the one thing spelled out by the concept tree. So when we say one thing, we mean a unity, a variety. So then Prabhupada gives another example of a machine. Let's, for the sake of argument, makes it easy for me. Let's go for a picture of one of those old steam engines. You know, the steam engines. Sometimes you see them on the road, but you often see them at fairgrounds. So I don't know what machine Prabhupada was talking about, but he said there's one thing called a machine. You look at the machine, it's got lots of components, but it's all machine. So here's what he says. In a machine, all the parts may be iron, but the machine includes varied activities. Although the whole machine is iron, one part works in one way and other parts work in other ways. One who does not know how the machine is working may say that it is just iron. It's all iron. Nonetheless, in spite of its being iron, the machine has different elements, all working differently to accomplish the purpose for which the machine was made. One wheel, he continues, one wheel runs this way, another wheel runs that way, functioning naturally in such a way that the work of the machine goes on. Consequently, we give different names to different parts of the machine, saying, this is a wheel, this is a screw, this is a spindle, this is the lubrication, and so on. Similarly, as explained in the Vedas, so now we're coming back to the sacred texts, Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate Swabhavaki Jnana Balakriya Cha. That's from the Svetashvatara Upanishad 6.8. It is heard that the Supreme Being's potency is many. By his very nature, his knowledge, strength, and activities operate spontaneously. So if we break that down, Parasya Shaktir, which means the Supreme, Parasya, Shakti, energy or power. Vividaiva Shruyate, Shruyate, I heard. Vividaiva, many varieties. Vivida means manifold, many things going on at the same time. Vivida. Swabhavaki cha. All these vivida, all these different things, functions, operates naturally, spontaneously, as their own nature. And then jnana balakriya cha, as knowledge, strength, and activity, and bliss and knowledge and existence, like we've just been saying. In simpler terms, the Supreme Being has many potencies, and these potencies function naturally without any external causation. That's the thing. You can say with a tree that there's a cause of the tree. Some farmer came along and planted a tree, or some bird passed poo, and in that poo there was a seed of an apple, and from that combination the apple tree grew many years ago. So he said there's a cause, and for the bird to fly over that spot there was a cause, and for the apple to be eaten there was a cause, and for that tree where the apple came from there was another cause, and there's the cause of all causes. You can go back to the original cause, the karana, the cause of all causes. But the difference between that going on in the material world and Godhead, the Paramattva, is that for anything that's going on, all these energies that we've been hearing about, there is no cause. Sometimes people like to say, so God created everything, huh? You say that God created everything, Mr. Theist. Well, I've got a question for you. And they take a deep breath and then they say, who created God, huh? Who created God? As if to say, ha, stumped you. It's an obvious question, but it's a pretty stupid question, because the very definition of Godhead is that which is the cause of everything, at least to us, that which is the cause of everything, but which itself has no cause. Sarva karana karanam, the cause of all causes, the Adipurusha, the original, the Govindam Adipurusham. And of course we have that prayer, don't we? That first mantra, Ishvara Paramakrishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir, Anadir Adir, the beginningless beginning. The Paramattva is the beginningless beginning. And so the materialist will say, well, how can you have a beginningless beginning? Everything begins somewhere. Except, Mr. Materialist, if my definition that I am trying to help you to understand is that there is a beginningless beginning, which is beyond space and time. That is Ishvara, or Paramattva. So these three Shaktis that we've been hearing about, which are themselves components of the internal energy, are described as Jnana, Bala, Kriya, or Jnana Shakti, which is knowledge, Bala Shakti, power, and Kriya Shakti, potency for activity. Now these terms correspond exactly to Samvit, that's the knowledge Shakti, Jnana Shakti, the one who knows everything. Bala Shakti, which is Sandini, the existence, the powerful existence, and Hladini, which is the Kriya Shakti. In Kriya we act for happiness. The idea is that if there's any activity in God, whether it be creation of this world or creation of an entire spiritual world, which is 3/4 of the proportion of the entire reality, it is for his pleasure. So, just to get you even more confused, there are 3 more terms that are used. And these 3 terms, you will have heard these before: Sat, Chit, Ananda. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Sat is eternity, Chit is knowledge, and bliss. So we know that bliss is Hladini Shakti. It's also called Ananda, and it's also called Kriya Shakti. So throughout the sacred texts, different Upanishads and Puranas will give us different triplets. We'll have 3 words for these internal energies of the Supreme, but they mean the same thing. Don't become confused. But they're not swapped around. Sat and Chit will always be with Ananda. Chit and Ananda will always be with Sat. And let's see some of the other terms. There's a list of them. Sandini, Samvit, and Hladini will always be together. Bala, Jnana, and Kriya will always be together. Or Bala Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. And then Prabhupada sometimes puts these into English language. He calls the Sandini potency the sustaining potency. That power of God which sustains God and Godhead and everything that makes up Godhead. That is the sustaining potency. So sometimes he just translates it into English without bracketing the Sanskrit term that he's taken it from. Sustaining potency, the potency of cognizance, or the pleasure potency. So those will always be expressed together. Or power, knowledge, and activity. Or existence, cognition, and bliss. Or sometimes, just to confuse you, you can watch this again. The will to be. Paramattva has the will to be. The will to know. It's all ikshana, or will, isn't it? We talked about the Supreme having the ultimate reality. It also means that it is not bereft of willpower, the power to make something happen, to want something to happen, and then to make it happen. This is all in the realms of possibility for the Supreme. We want something to happen. It may happen. A lot of the time it doesn't happen. That's called not being God. But God, when he wants something to happen, it cannot fail to happen. Why? Because he's supremely powerful. That's what it means to be God. And finally, the will to enjoy. These are 3 aspects of the Purna Brahma. Purna Brahma. So, interestingly enough, these correspond to the three states of Godhead that we heard about last week in our description of the Srila Vyasadev's mystical vision. He entered into trance and he saw Godhead completely. He saw the souls, he saw Maya, he saw the internal and external energy and the marginal energy all together in one cosmic vision of reality. So later on we talked about Brahman, or the, as many people call it, the white light. We talked about the Paramatma, or super soul. We talked about Bhagavan, or the Supreme Person. So when we talk about Sat, Chit and Ananda, when we say Sat, Sat means all existence, eternal existence, unchanging. This is Brahman. Sat and Chit are existence plus knowledge, that is Paramatma. Then Sat Chit Ananda is Bhagavan. So Brahman is known as Nirvishesha. We've come through this a little bit, but just to refresh your memory. Brahman is undifferentiated, but it's the undifferentiated state of Bhagavan. Just like we were talking about the tree is the one thing. I know trees don't have a brain, but must be one part of the tree that's controlling all the other parts of the tree, perhaps. I'm no tree expert, but to be a tree means that there's a lot going on, and it's all going on simultaneously. So to study an apple, you have to study more than the apple to understand the tree. And the interesting thing is, if you don't know much about nature and you try to understand a tree by examining an apple, you'd be very low in your understanding of the tree, because an apple is juicy, it's sweet, has sugar in it, it looks nice red color. However, most of the tree is bitter, twiggy, woody, and green. So how can you get a nice red apple from a tree which is bitter, woody, and green? Well, you can. That's just the way it works. But sometimes people want to try to understand God by the very first thing that they pick from the God tree. And in the God tree, the first thing that you'd go towards is something which is bright red and juicy and sweet. If you're a child in spiritual realization, you'd be happy with the apple. I got an apple. Now I know the tree. Well, Brahman is the first fruit of the tree of spiritual awareness. That's the first thing that people come to when they're trying to abandon the material identification, the body identification. And so many people, it's not that difficult actually to become Brahman realized, or to have a vision of Brahman. People have what is known as spurti. Spurti means a temporary vision of Brahman, an oceanic vision, and it crops up in different religions. Prabhupada one time was telling the story of Diogenes, the Greek philosopher who lived in Athens in a big wine barrel, big wooden wine barrel. And you can call him Diogenes, or you can call him Diogenes. This is his Greek name. But he was the guru, so to speak, of Alexander the Great. So he counseled Alexander before he went off and conquered the world and became great. Alexander came back to him and he said, "My lord, you gave me so many wise words before I became Alexander the Great. I've come back now after having conquered half the world, or conquered all the world." That was the world that he knew. "And I want to give you something as a gift." And Diogenes said, "I don't need anything." He said, "But I have gold and silver and rubies and diamonds. I have palaces and wives and chariots and horses. I've got everything." He said, "I don't need any of those things." So Prabhupada commented that this understanding that you cannot be really satisfied by anything that the earth has to offer you. This is Atma Rama. Atma, the self, Rama, pleasure within. Atma Rama, one who gains pleasure from the soul, pleasure from the self. So he refused everything that Alexander the Great wanted to give him. Eventually, he said, all right, then there's one thing you can do for me. He said, Alexander said, what? What, my lord, what is it? I'll do anything for you. He said, could you just move out of the way? He said, you're blocking the sun. You're blocking the sun. Alexander moved and he was happy again. So this is an Atma Rama. So if this can be achieved, this Brahman realization, the realization that I am the soul and my pleasure is from the soul only, if this can come to a Greek philosopher, it can come to a yoga teacher or a Christian mystic. And so it's the first general understanding that people have of a higher existence. It takes something to hang on to those moments of spurti, those moments of extreme spiritual clarity. But it is based on understanding the sat, the eternity of all things, rather the eternity of the self, the soul, the spirit, and the changeability of all things. That's what I meant to say, what I should have said. So Brahman is devoid of distinction. It's homogeneous, which means that every part of it is the same, uniform, and it's indivisible. You can't chop it up. We talked about that. All powers remain within it, but in a potential state. It is the tanuba, there's that word again, tan. It is the tanuba, that which is projected out. It is the bodily luster of Bhagavan. Paramatma is, by contrast, differentiated and qualified state of a partial manifestation of Godhead. So Paramatma is Godhead in relation to the world and to the souls. And Paramatma has two powers. One power is the Jiva Shakti, or the soul, and Maya Shakti, or the external energy, the world of matter. So it means that Paramatma is in the world of matter with the souls, but not with Bhagavan. Sometimes we say Paramatma translates as super self, over self, super soul, like that. But he's also known in Sanskrit as Antaryami, the indwelling witness, the God who is within, and is the controller of all the souls in the material world. Paramatma is that energy of God, that part of God which sees to us that we go from one life to the next, but we take our memory with us. So the Paramatma is the metaphysical foundation of the evolution of the world from Prakriti, and is endowed with the powers of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. So, another example Prabhupada gives of Paramatma. He says it's like sometimes you have a town, and the state fair comes to the town, the fairground comes to the town, and that means that it will draw thousands and thousands of people to come to the fair from around, 50 miles around the town. So there'll be a lot of people in town. And the mayor of the town, he will draft in more police. Because if there's police in the town, then people won't get up to mischief. They tend to get a bit excited when fairs come to town. There's rides and there's, lots of things to do. People may be agitated or excited. So more police are drafted in. But when the fair leaves town, the police will also leave town. So Prabhupada has said that Paramatma is like the police for the material world. They're drafted in when the material world exists, and they're drafted out when the material world does not exist. So the material world is a place of attraction for rebellious souls. We come here like a fairground. Or as the brilliant John Bunyan used to say in his brilliant Pilgrim's Progress, he said, this world is like Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair, he said, we come here for our own vanity. It's all about us. See, that distracts us from God. We're taken off the path to God. And then we come to Bhagavan. Bhaga means opulence or attribute or possession or glory. And Van means that which possesses, he who possesses. So Bhagavan is the highest and most complete manifestation of the Absolute. He's infinite in excellence and power and sweetness. Sweetness is an interesting one, isn't it? Only in Bhakti do we find that Bhagavan, the Lord Almighty, is also sweet. It's also full of sweetness. You see, most people, they think that if God is the supreme layer down of rules and laws, then he must be a terrible, must have a very grim face, and he must be very serious and grave, and he's laying down all these rules for us to follow. And if we don't follow them, we go to hell, and if we do follow them, we go to heaven. So he's a very serious person. But here we find he's full of compassion and he's full of sweetness. Bhagavan means he has all the divine attributes and Shaktis in full, but he displays a portion of his powers through Brahman and through Paramatma. So there's a portion of the entire tree, a portion of the power of the entire tree that's displayed through the apple. Trees are about apples, but they're about so much more. A tree is about standing there for 200 years. The apple's got nothing to do with that. The tree is about, thousands of leaves pulling in sunlight and using chlorophyll to convert it to sugar. The apple's nothing to do with that. So the power of the tree, the overall power of the tree, is expressed through the different portions. But the different portions themselves are not the full power of the tree. So Bhagavan is the full thing and displays a portion of his power through Brahman and Paramatma. Again, Bhagavan is unaffected by Maya. Maya can't touch him. He's always above the modes of material nature. And then we go into something which is just you will hear in Bhakti. You may not hear it anywhere else, folks. Bhagavan has two aspects. Aishwarya Maya, which is power and majesty, and Madhurya Maya. Maya in this case means magic or energy. It doesn't mean Maya as in something bad. So Aishwarya means the greatness of God. God is great. Allahu Akbar. Praise the Lord, the Almighty God. This is one aspect of him. That's true. One aspect of Bhagavan is that he's mighty. He's big. He's bigger than the biggest. But for God to be properly mighty, he also has to be smaller than the smallest. So this is an aspect. As soon as you say that God is greater than the greatest, you have to say that he's smaller than the smallest. Otherwise he's not great. He has to occupy everything, all aspects of space. So the other aspect here is sweetness, where the sweetness predominates. You enter into a relationship with God. That's also there. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. So Ishvara Parama Krishna, Krishna, that which is all attractive. Parama, Ishvara Parama, he's the supreme controller. Well, that's very interesting. Not essentially attractive, but it's that someone is the supreme controller may or may not be attractive to us. Otherwise, if it was, there are many other religions that say that God is the Supreme Controller. Satchit Ananda Vigraha is the Satchit and Ananda. And perhaps we are interested in that a little bit more. Ananda Vigraha, that is the form of bliss. Well, that's interesting to us. How can I have some of that bliss? I'm suffering here in this world. Dear God, I know you're the Ishvara Parama, the Supreme Controller, but how about a little Ananda Vigraha? Then, Anadiradir Govinda, you're the Govinda, you're the compassionate leader of the soul. Go means he who leads, he who takes, as in something which is led. So go means, a cow which is led, or go also means the senses, is leading our senses, Govinda. And Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. It's a good verse to learn. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all, and he has no other origin. He is the prime cause of all causes. This comes from the Brahma Samhita. So we said that Bhagavan meant Bhaga, the opulences, and Van, he who possesses. These Bhagas are listed in the Vishnu Purana, which is an ancient text compiled by Parashara Muni, who was the father of Srila Vyasadeva. So father and son, they created the two most important Vaishnava scriptures. So in the Vishnu Purana we find this verse, Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashya jnana vairagyayaish chaiva shanang bhaga itangada. So Aishwarya means majesty, riches, unchallenged rule over others, Aishwarya, just complete Ishvara. Virya means valor, power or immutability. Immutability means you can't push him, you can't change him, you can't convince him, you can't persuade him, you can't move him, you can't drag him, you can't do anything. He's just immutable, Virya. Despite the mutability of creation, everything in creation, from clay to the famous tree that we were talking about, tree can be chopped, clay can be fashioned, a river can be stopped and made into a dam, human beings can be wiped out by a bomb. Everything in this material world is mutable. But God is immutable. Number 3 is Yashash, all fame. Doesn't matter how famous you are, your fame goes like this. Not much fame, not much fame, not much fame, little bit of fame, more fame, very famous, most famous. Then what happens? People starting to forget me, my fame is disappearing, coming down, I die, and maybe I'm not so famous anymore. However, those who live selflessly, helping others, sometimes in the name of God, they can become famous for many, many centuries. Yeah. So Shri is another one. Shri means beauty. God has beauty. Oh, this is something new, isn't it? I thought God was an old man with a beard, with wrinkles, throwing thunderbolts. Isn't that the image of God? How about God being beautiful? Did you not think about beauty? Well, he's not like us, so how can he be beautiful? Well, you've said that he's an old man because he's the oldest of all. Why can he not be the oldest of all and beautiful at the same time? Yes, but it won't be beauty like we know. Well, why not? Where's your conception of beauty coming from? Your conception of beauty is coming from the Supreme Beautiful anyway. You're created by that Supreme Beautiful. Supreme Beauty. Jnana, knowledge, we talked about that. Vairagya, which means a detachment, detachment, which means that God is not interested in anything that he creates. He's just completely dispassionate. So then we talk about this Aishwarya and Madhurya, omniscience, omnipresence and omnipotence. These are Greek words actually. Omniscient means he who knows everything. Omnipresent means he is present everywhere. And omnipotence is omnipotence, or it means majesty, he who is all-powerful. They're too great for Bhagavan to be comprehended or approachable. But the things that we understand him for is his friendliness, his kindness, his attractiveness, his deep affection, his eagerness to love and be loved. These things are Madhurya. These are the sweet attributes that Bhagavan establishes close relationships with us, with you and me. So Ramanuja, when he's commenting on this, he said there's 5 qualities of God as the ultimate reality. He said he's Satyam, he's the truth, free from any relativities of time or space. He's Chit, omniscience, done these. Ananta, infinitude, that which is infinite and yet continues to expand. This is an interesting thing. Sometimes we can't grasp infinity, so we have a sort of mental construct of infinity, which means that it's sort of infinity ends somewhere. We can't quite figure out that infinity is growing. How can infinity grow? What does it grow into? This is difficult for us to appreciate. Anandam, enjoying unlimited bliss. And Amala, purity, free from all flaws, free from deterioration of any kind, and always purifying. So these are the metaphysical reality and the sublime characteristics of how he interacts with souls. So then we have a small section here that I will finish up. The Pancharatra, which we follow, as well as the Vedas and the Puranas, talks about the location of God in these different forms. Firstly, there is the form of God in the spiritual sky. This is known as Para. He's known as Paramapurusha. And around him he's served by countless eternal devotees. He expands as what is known as formations, or there's a hierarchy of levels of God. These are known as Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha and Pradyumna. The formation, Vyuha. Then Vibhava. Vibhava means he comes as many different incarnations. And sometimes that is bewildering for people, because they think that if God is one, how can he be many? Or if the tree is one, how can there be many branches? But they're all tree. So he comes as Vamana, Nrsimha, Parashuram and Rama. He comes as all different incarnations, many different incarnations. He comes as Antaryami, the super soul within. He comes as Archa, the imaged, the deity form of the Lord. And of course he comes as the sacred texts, the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Those books are non-different from God himself. The name of God is non-different from God himself. So there is no contradiction between Bhagavan having a divine form. Satchit Ananda does not mean that it's vapor. Now I believe in God, but I believe he's something like sort of smoke or X-rays or something like that. He's not a person that you can see. Well, why not? The human form is based on the original template of God. It should not be considered that the body of Bhagavan is an anthropomorphic projection of the human mind. So people, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that those who are foolish, they believe that Bhagavan is made of flesh and blood when he comes to this world. But we have to understand it is not like that. So we have covered quite a bit in this talk, and I shall end it here, and we shall go on to another subject next time. Thank you very, very much for coming again and listening. And I always enjoy your company. Hare Krishna. Om Shanti. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening very carefully. There was a little bit more to end that section, but I think we'd covered quite enough. Good. Super. Where should we go? We've got a few minutes left. We've had 24, 25 people. Very nice. What have we got here? Once again, if you could possibly refrain from sharing this class until tomorrow, because if you share it once, if anybody shares it once, it doesn't allow me, the creator, to trim the video, and we need to trim the video. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming tonight. If we've got any questions, we've had the pleasure of the company of Alex, Leela Manjari, Owen, Owen with his masala chips. Do you eat chips? Do you eat chips while you're listening to my class? We've got Anna Piney. We've got Erica Martini. Now let me tell you, Erica Martini is a lovely soul, and she lives in a place called Prabhupada Desh. Prabhupada Desh is a beautiful temple, which is an old Catholic monastery, now inhabited by devotees of Krishna. It's about an hour outside Venezia, and let me tell you, the Harinam Sankirtan in the narrow streets of Venice are an experience that everybody must have at least once, going over bridges and alongside canals, and it's wonderful. And last year, at least Richard was there, my wife and I were there, and I forget who else, but we enjoyed Harinam in Venice. And so you can always go to Prabhupada Desh for a wonderful retreat, and change makes a difference. And we've got Deepak Vora, who doesn't need to go to Venice because he's always in Chinatown with the ecstatic devotees of London. And we've got Cindy Lunsford, Sita Sundari. She doesn't. She just goes down the road to Nashville High Street. That's exciting enough. Then we've got Narayani. Oh, she's got the obvious question. When you say the spiritual world is 3/4 of the entirety, then my head starts spinning, trying to imagine 1/4 of infinity, or 3/4 of an endless amount of worlds and universe. Whoa. Sometimes, Narayani, these things you just have to miserably fail to conceptualize, and you just hang on to that piece of information. One time, a devotee came to Prabhupada at Bhaktivedanta Mani, and he said, Prabhupada, I can't understand how Mahavishnu creates universes from the pores of his body. Prabhupada just looked at him. He just looked at it and he said, you will never understand with your puppy brain. Meaning, we can't. Balaji and Leela Manjari and Wendy Margarita, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Elaine Human, that's good, Hare Krishna. And Pete, and thank you, and Alex. Thanks very much, Elaine. You know what you can do, Elaine? You go to Kripamoya Das on YouTube, and you'll see everything that you missed tonight. Richard says, oh, Prabhupada Desh ISKCON Vicenzas. This Saturday we will have Maha Harinam in Venice during the Venice Carnival. Take your masks. Jay Robinson says thanks. Linda Romano says thanks. Pete says, what are the 5 Vedic mantras represented by your 5 faces? Good Lord. Do not know. Richard says, this was another wonderful Monday evening. I love the analogy of the tree. Yes, I'll watch again to take proper notes. I think what we have to do with these analogies, Richard, is use them. If you repeat an analogy, you create a word picture, not just for the person that you're explaining it to, but for you yourself. And it really helps to remember, oh yes, when I'm explaining the energies of God, I've got to remember the spider and the web, the cow and the milk, and the tree and the apple and all the branches. And you have a series of pictures, pictograms in your mind, and you'll be able to express it nicely. All right, thank you so much. Whenever you want a Wednesday evening on Zoom, please tell me when we can do it again. All right, thank you. All glories to Prabhupada for this wonderful information that he gives us. Thank you. See you all again soon. I also gave class at Bhaktivedanta Mana if you want to catch that up. That's on Mana Media. And did anybody see the teaser trailer of the film about Srila Vyasadeva? What was that? That was nice, wasn't it? Oh, we liked it. Katerina, Hare Krishna.